Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the podcast today, we have Deborah LeBlanc. Deborah, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. I appreciate you having me on the show.
It is my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Oh my gosh. I am right now, I am a certified hypnotherapist, a master NLP practitioner, a therapeutic imagery practitioner, and an MER practitioner. We also do corporate events where one of the things I realized in coming out of corporate environment, not only in working for quote unquote demand, but having my own business, a different business for 25 years is you try to make special events at least once a year, bring in a motivational speaker, and it gets everybody on a high for a couple of days. If you're lucky, it'll last a week. And then they go back to doing things the old way. And I thought about that, and I said, because some of these people charge a fortune. So what am I accomplishing? Am I meeting my goal, or I'm just entertaining them for an hour? So part of the thing that I did was realize when I married hypnotherapy to what I naturally do, which is public speaking. I've been doing that for 12 years, but on a different motivation, a different mindset, that I could create change that was lasting it became the standard. Because what keeps us going back to what we were doing before is a limited belief that is set inside of us, probably since we were kids. And as we grew up, that limited belief became a known. And that's what creates concepts like, oh, I can't do that. A position becomes available for a sales manager. And you have someone that does a really good job, but they have a feeling, I don't think I've got the qualifications to do it. I'm too scared to go and talk to the boss about it. And they lose out on so many opportunities. So what you have is a kind of a mix of energy in your company. And what you want, and I don't know how relevant football is in the UK, but in the US, it's like, besides God, there's football. Okay, it runs in that direction. So
our football is your soccer.
Soccer. Well, my daughters played soccer, so I'm familiar with it because I was a soccer mom. We have a team of people, and I looked at them like a football team. If I were to coach them and motivate them and help and bring in other people to motivate them, what I'm looking for is, if I have a linebacker, if I have a quarterback, if I have whatever is involved on the team, they have to be the best they can be. They have to draw from in themselves the power that existed and belonged to them from the time they were born. Well, I can't do that with a mixed match team. I can't grow a company from 0 to $4 million in this span of time, a very short span of time. I have to have everybody playing at Super Bowl level, because that's where I want to go. So I go into corporations, and that's what I do. I first meet with the CEO to see if he's not the one with the limiting beliefs, because it always starts from the top and works its way down. There have been a couple of times when I've had to go to an owner and say, he says, have you found the problem? And I said, yes, I have. Are you sure you want to hear what it is? And very gracefully, but very honestly, I'll tell him, Joe, the problem here is you. And we need to tighten up and focus your leadership skills. You want a winning team. You want to grow 10% a year. You want profitability. You want profitable growth. Everybody wants to expand, but you can expand 100-fold and go into bankruptcy the next year. It has to be profitable growth. So we established a process that takes each section of their teams, accounting, I don't care what part they play, because they're part of a whole. And we center them to that goalpost, or that, what do you call it in soccer? That big net, where you're kicking in your point. I want everybody focused there. That's where the ball goes. And then you create a winning team, because everybody's mindset changes, not only for business, for their home life, for their own well-being. They become happier people. Because it's not like, oh, I don't go to work today. It's not like that. They become and feel like they're part owners. They take responsibility. They go home and or better fathers, better husbands, unless they've married Corella DeVille, I can't deal with that, but they become better people. And then we have a part of our service that, because there are so many good hypnotherapists out there, especially from the university that I graduated from, the one thing they can't do is market themselves. They are fantastic at the modalities they've chosen. And some have chosen specific areas to target, like PTSD, anxiety, depression, smoking cessation. And we are international. So I've set up a hypnotherapist referral service. So when our clients call in with a particular issue that I know, I have someone, they may be in Australia, they may be in the UK, who specializes in one particular modality, and I'm personally vet every hypnotherapist that comes through. I want to make sure I'm going to verify their certification, that they didn't get it on one of these weekend jobs where you can get a doctoral, for $29.95. And as long as you spend the entire weekend there, because you promised the hotel that you were going to meet your booking quota for their rooms. I verify their education. I talk to them, then get a feel for why they went into hypnotherapy, because I want them to, the whole team, whether it's becomes their client or they're referred by Mind Path Therapies, they have to have the same mindset. And that is to exceed their client's expectation. How long have you been practicing? What's your success rate? If you're not measuring that, I'm not interested. I want the best. If I'm going to refer you to somebody because you're really having an issue with major depression, I will first refer you to probably a psychiatrist or a psychologist to make sure it's not clinical. I'll ask you if you've had any suicidal ideations. If that's the case, that is an immediate referral. In fact, if that's the case, you're not leaving my Zoom room or my office until I've contacted your emergency contact person, and they're going to come and make sure that you get home or to a hospital safely.
Well,
Anybody
on the topic of specific issues, which
yes,
which you're alluding to, I really wanted to jump in, but I wanted to let you finish as well on that line of thinking. As you mentioned, the owners or the leaders of a particular business having potentially having limiting beliefs, and I was interested in knowing what's the most common limiting belief that a leader or an owner has.
I would say the most common, though they will, it takes me about 3 sessions with them or 3 hours with them to get out, truly get out the fear of success, because they're emulating somebody else. They're emulating Bill Gates. They're attempting to be somebody else they're not. If you want, whatever business I went into, I did look at the best. I wanted to see what they did to make them accomplish, allowed them to accomplish what they accomplished. But I only gleaned what fit me. I didn't copy them. I didn't want to be their twin, you know. My drive and strive was is always been to help other people. That's why I think I was put here. That's why I think all people are put here, is to serve one another, to help one another. You do that with your program in teaching business owners, small companies, startups. How do you get better at what you do? Because they put their heart and soul and money, some of them their life savings, in getting a company off the ground. So that is probably the biggest one. The biggest limiting belief is fear of success.
How would you go about tackling that?
I would find out first where it started. And I do that through hypnosis. It typically comes from childhood. And without going into a huge explanation, our conscious mind, what you use to make decisions, to where your intuition comes from, other than it feels like it's from your gut, it comes from your conscious mind. But that's only 12% of your brain. 88% is your subconscious. And that all that's in there are what we call knowns. It was formed, and all of them were formed between birth and 8 years old. So your subconscious mind is no older than 9. And when you hit a wall in business and can't seem to ever get across it, like a lot of people do when they start out in business, it's because of a limiting belief that they heard, thought, took a one event in their life, or it could have been multiple, but took one event in their life and gave it a meaning. They could have, I don't know, a father could have given his son a guitar, and then he wanted the son to play in front of his friends. The son is playing and he can't play the guitar. The father gave him one and expected him that he had raised a prodigy, but he didn't. Okay. The boy can't play. And the father goes, well, I mean, listen to you. You're horrible. You can't do anything with that. What the boy heard, you are useless. That's how he interpreted it. So it got layered and locked into his subconscious at that young age. You're worthless. You cannot do something new. You don't know how. Well, of course he doesn't. He's 8. The subconscious mind doesn't know that. Right on top of that subconscious mind is called the critical mind. It's like, imagine it like a netting between the conscious and subconscious. Hypnosis opens a doorway through that critical mind and goes in with you fully aware of what's going on. Hypnosis is not, it gets a bad rap, which is a whole nother program, but we go in, find that limiting belief, collapse it, and turn it into something powerful. We get you to understand that you were born unique, and your uniqueness this world needs. There are a lot of sheep out there. You know that. Everybody's following in one massive group, and you don't know who's leading that pack. And are they leading them off a cliff? You, who have tapped into a mind-body connection, says, whoa, guys, does anybody know who's leading up there? Or are you just following, heading that way because everybody else is? So we get him to really drill down to where that limiting belief is so that it breaks. And what happens is his conscious mind, everything changes. His vision broadens. And what he learns then are the processes that it needs to put into place, which we help him do, to make that bigger goal come true, which is what he wanted in the first place, but didn't know how, couldn't figure how. He couldn't figure how because of that limiting belief that says you can't anyway. So why should you get the answers to that? You truly believe you can't.
Have you got any thoughts on, I think in terms of like a scale, I think the limiting beliefs are more of a problem than the opposite. But have you got any thoughts on people who perhaps they've gone so far as to think that, I mean, harsh description of this would be like deluded. So I'm so convinced that I'm great, but in fact I'm not. So it would be, to use your analogy, the boy who's playing the guitar thinks he's great at playing the guitar, but actually he's not any good. Have you got any thoughts that spring to mind there?
But strangely enough, the first person that comes to mind is Bruce Springsteen. Do you know who he is? Who doesn't know the boss, right? Well, there were a lot of people when Bruce first started off that thought he was horrible. Bruce had a vision. He knew he had an odd voice. It did not ring true with everybody else's, but he kept on keeping on. And look at him today. Some kid from New Jersey that hung out with other ragtags on E Street, now they're, oh my gosh, you can't measure what he does. People that will step out there and strut their stuff and think they're all that have a limiting belief. And that's their protection. They can't produce anything. They just act as if they can, right?
So you would say it was more bluster than it is self-belief.
Yes. Yeah, it's not self-belief. It's a protection mechanism. It's like a blowfish. A blowfish, if is poisonous, but when its predator comes up, what does it do? It blows itself up, to look like it's big and bad. But it's not. It's, it's just this big. That's what a person with an overzealous, let me give you an example. You went out and bought a brand new, let's say you went out and bought a brand new Audi. This guy will come up and say, how coincidental is that? I just bought a new BMW. He's going to one-up you every time, and he didn't. He did not. But are you going to go to his house and look in his garage to make sure he's telling the truth? Of course not. He is going to balance what he knows you won't do, but he's going to one-up you every chance he gets. What he doesn't realize, or she doesn't realize, is that most people see straight through it. When someone is really great at what they do, and they carry themselves differently, they don't talk boisterously. They're not like that. Unless they were, I'm going to make an exception, unless they were born into all that money. Then they were trained that way, because Dad started it on a wing and a prayer when everybody said he couldn't, and he did it. Well, the son grew up thinking, he didn't have to go to work. He didn't even have to. He passed high school by the skin of his teeth. But his father threw this huge party for him because he had the money, And he didn't think his kid was going to graduate from high school anyway. The kid thinks he is a genius. And he carries on in life like that. And without that fortune waiting for him when his father passes away, he winds up, in some flat somewhere broke.
Leading on from what you said originally about it was the limiting belief of the leader. And then once you overcome that limiting belief, you can then get everyone, let's say, pointed in the right direction. I think,
Yes.
can't remember the exact phrase you used, but have you got any, what comes to mind in terms of the best way to go about doing that? Because I mean, from my perspective, I found it quite difficult to get everyone sort of aligned in the same direction, working towards the same goal. Anything that springs to mind for you there?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with different businesses. I mean, different funeral homes, big conglomerate funeral homes, some Fortune 1000 corporations. They all have a different mentality. Usually, the smaller they are, the more loyal the employees are. I mean, if you're only looking at 10, 15 employees, most everybody, you have very little turnover and everybody's heading in the right direction. But I did do one for a huge conglomerate that owned probably throughout the US, probably owned 2,000 funeral homes. And they wanted to be more profitable. They were trying to cut out the little man, the funeral home who had been handed down for 3 generations and had taken care of everybody in the neighborhood for all those generations. They were trying to get them out of business. It's kind of like Walmart. I don't know if you have Walmarts there, but Walmart is a huge department store that literally shut down the mom and pop stores here. Well, Big Dog comes in and he wants change. He wants to just take over the world. But the problem was he had such a mishmash of people. He needed different departments, but he had one person doing the job of 4 departments. In one, he would assign him a category, not a category, and a territory. All right. Then he would add an additional category to his territory that he was responsible for. He didn't make him a manager of the territory. He just made him do all the work of all 4 positions. That was not healthy. It wasn't healthy. You had him burn out. The guy was on 24-hour call. And it just did not work. So we had to reassemble the whole thing so that he wound up with fewer employees. Unfortunately, sometimes it winds up that way because they don't know what to do and they start hiring more people to fill slots instead of restructuring it and reduce their payroll and do it more efficiently. They just don't know how. They are removed from it probably by 3 layers. So they're just saying, they're throwing money at it. If this is a problem, let's hire somebody to take care of that. Or, if you're small, you take care of it. I'm going to add that to your job and give you an additional $1 an hour raise. Oh my gosh. I'm going to schedule a trip to the Bahamas on that. It's just, it's crooked. Not in they're crooks. It is lopsided. That's a better term. So we just, unless you're someone who's forward thinking, but who understands the psychology of people, you have to feed body, mind, soul. If you're going to keep a quality employee, you have to understand they have a family, they have a life. They are part of your corporate family, but they have a world outside of you. You can't take that away from them, because then they won't have a full life. And that's what keeps people with you, keeps them loyal, keeps them focused on what you want to accomplish.
Interesting. I have spoken to a few people on employee engagement, and that is one of the things. I think one of the first things that they mention is about how you have a whole person. You don't. It's not logical to ask people to leave all of their other stuff at the door and only only become a worker bee, if you like. But one of the things that we were going to cover today was the topic of motivation. And I think before you asked me about maybe two different categories, if you will, of motivation. Do you mind clarifying the two differences there? Because I can't quite remember what the two options were about what type of motivation.
Well, the motivation in a company has to start from the top. It has to. But if that motivation is, this is one concept some leaders forget, is that when an employee is in a position where they get paid, let's say, per can that goes down a conveyor belt, he knows how much money they get paid per can. So when he's clicking off cans and boxing them, what he's doing is tallying in his head, this guy is sucking up millions, and I'm making 600. I could convert it into pounds if I had my Google. That's about it. I'm making $600 a week. This is like way off scale. But what they don't understand, and what the owner doesn't share with most of the employees, is where that money goes, that it costs. There's electrical, there's labor, there are taxes, and, on and on and on. People think that you have a business, you pay them, and you get everything else in your pocket. That's one problem. The other is themselves, the owner themselves. I came from a very dysfunctional background. My parents were divorced when I was 8, and I wound up raising my brother and sister because my mother was a whack job. That's the best way I can put it. She's gone, bless her heart. But I realized at a very young age, this wasn't a mother. I didn't have ideations that I needed Beaver Cleaver's mother, who ran around in dresses and pearls to cook dinner, and everything was set on the table when everyone came home from school and work. She was an explosion, always waiting to happen. Well, I was an extreme introvert, but the one thing I loved more than anything was to read. And I read and read about people who came from nothing and made like Abraham Lincoln, people like that just came from nothing and became president of the US. What did they go through? What was their mindset? What changed in them? And realized I'm not, because we wound up living in the projects, which is, I don't know if you have them there in the UK, but it's where it's lower than low income. You might pay $30 in rent. You're under a federal program, and there's a stigma that's attached to it. So all through school, all through high school, I was bullied. I was called the PK kid. It was almost like I was carrying some kind of contagious disease. So I was alone a lot. And all I knew, even at that age, was I'm not my mother. I was brought here for a reason and born into this situation for a reason. So, and even, I don't know why, my grandmother always used to tell me, "You're such an old soul." I knew that there was a reason I was born into all this chaos. So I just watched and paid attention. And that watching that, like I said, my mother was always an explosion waiting to happen. Well, you always had to keep your eye out in case that explosion happened, because I would grab my brother and sister and bring them into hiding, and I would face the explosion to protect them. But what that caused is me to have an acute sense of my surroundings, meaning my competitors, the industry I was in, what was going up, what was going down, and why. I had an eagle eye that I would have never developed had I not undergone that. So I left. I went to college, got a marketing degree, and that was not my heart's desire. I wanted to be a psychiatrist, to fix people like my mother, But I got into marketing because I was married very young, had 3 daughters, and wound up realizing I'd married a bum. And if I had married my mother, we were going to, no, male mother. You know what I'm saying? He had the same qualities. Not when we were dating and not the first 6 months of marriage, but anyway, we had 3 daughters. I had to feed them. I wanted them to go to public school, private school, because the public schools where we lived really were horrible. And I wanted them to because I knew education was crucial. It's what put you ahead of the game. I taught them to read when they were 2 and 3 years old, so that because reading causes your brain to open up like a theater, a screen in a theater. You have a panoramic view instead of like a horse's blind. And if they wanted to try dancing, I wanted to let them wing it. Go ahead, be, Baryshnikov, the female version, but go ahead, be Baryshnikov. And I wanted to give them those opportunities. So I got into marketing because oil field was big in this field. And right after graduation, the market crashed. There were people out of work everywhere. You couldn't find a job for anything.
What year is this?
You're going to make me date myself?
Approximately?
No, this was the end of the 80s.
Okay.
I was a very young pup. Okay. I'd just gotten out of college. And so here I am thinking, I'm going to take over the oil field business. I was a female. There were no females in the oil field. For obvious reasons. People, they didn't want men on inland oil rigs mixing with women because anything could happen. These guys had been out there for 14 days. They ran 14 on, 14 off. So I found an advertisement in the newspaper that there was a company looking for a receptionist. A receptionist. That's something you do at home. You answer your phone. Hey, it's for you. So I said, what am I going to do? I took the job. There were 10 people sitting in the lobby for the same job, 10 women. I was the last one to go in for the interview. Gave him my resume. He looked it over. And you could tell they had been exhausted. They'd been talking to these women all day. And one of them just kind of sighed and he sat back and he goes, just answer one question. Why should I hire you? There are all these people out there. Why should I hire you? And just this popped out of my mouth. Because I will be the best business decision you make this year. And he just kind of looked at me. And he looked over his right shoulder at the guy sitting next to him and left, you're hired. And I got the job. Within 6 years, I became the executive VP of that company. and was in charge of 500 people. I was making mid six-figure salary, and left it. I left it to start my own company, a company that did not exist. I had a friend in London who contacted me about being a master distributor in the United States for a new technology for fuel. I knew one thing that was going to be an issue. I would have done it, but I knew that there was a distributor who took care of 90% of the people that sold fuel, retailers that sold fuel. And that company had already created the ultrasonic gauge. It used to, whoever ran the store, the manager would have to open a gas tank outside, rain, whatever, snow, open it up and put this huge stick inside, sit there for a minute, make sure it got soaked, and pull it back up and read where it was wet. And that's how they measured how much fuel they had. The ultrasonic gauge changed the world. They were able to measure it electronically. It fed it into a computer and spit it out on a tape, ticker tape. And I thought, I created a logistics side to the transportation end of the company I worked for. And I did it on a whim like that. I was in Kellogg's office. I'm talking the corporate office, to become one of their carriers. And it hit me when I was sitting down with the CEO of Kellogg's. And I said, I have a proposition for you. All the time I'm saying to myself, Deborah, what are you doing? Okay. Because we were not set up for this at all. I said, you make the best cornflakes in the United States. Would you agree? Well, he said, of course I agree. We do. I said, I agree with you. You do. I have a box sitting in my pantry right now. What about if you focused on making those great cornflakes and even better, and other brands that stem off of it, which they've done, and I will take care of your distribution, which is nothing but a pain in the hind end for you. It has nothing to do with cornflakes except getting them from point A to B. He went, what would that cost me? Now, right in my mind, I'm saying, I don't have a clue, because this just popped out of my mouth, okay? I said, let me put a proposal together and we'll chat again. I went back and told my boss what I'd done. And he went like, oh my God. He was excited. This was a whole new venture, but I built it for him, okay? Kellogg's went for the deal. Long story short, that logistics company just grew and grew and grew. Well, when the technology came out for fuel, I said, if it can be done for dry goods, it can be done for fuel, because now the technology is available. So I created a company that monitored fuel throughout Canada and the US. And we were able, because I understood the marketing of fuel and the marketing of transportation, I merged the two together and became like a police officer, because I knew the transportation companies were milking the retailers, and so were the suppliers of fuel. If they were running low on revenue in a month, they were going to top off every tank. Well, that leaves you with inventory to carry and a lower profit margin when you're doing your P&Ls, right? So I became a police officer in that business. And it was the best thing since sliced bread, because at that exact same time we were up and running, hypermarts came into play. That's when huge department stores started, grocery stores started putting fuel pumps in front of their grocery stores, thinking wives are going to go get groceries, they'll fill up their cars at the same time, which was exactly what happened, and sold more. They outsold every convenience store combined. in the US. One company, one. Well, then all of the other hypermarts started coming on. You just have a vision, and you know that you know in the pit of your gut, if you believe that if you work hard enough, this was just what I thought. I'm smart enough to figure it out. I don't have all the angles, but if you sit me down with a pen and paper, I am going to figure out how to get there at the most economical way, but in a way that is going to make the end user, the client, just fall on his feet saying, you were the best decision that I made this year. That's how I think we need to approach every client, every part of our jobs. So when I talk to my people, my team, it is about, I've already gone through the limiting beliefs. That's part of my vetting process for this new business. But prior to that, it was a lot of talk. It was talk. It was from the heart. It was from here in my gut. And it motivated people for a couple of days, a week, and then they would go back to doing things that were the way they were before. That didn't work. That didn't fly with me. Some people, I didn't get the limiting belief story. I'd never heard it. Hypnotherapy kind of fell in my lap after I sold my company. And that's when the real pieces fit together. I said, and by the way, with those that would not conform to exceeding a client's expectation had to go. I wasn't going to carry them. They were not going to make the Super Bowl. They were a weak chain in the link. They were a weak link in the chain. Oh, I got that backwards. So I would let them go and bring someone in that was hungry, that I could talk to and see if they were on the same wavelength. Now I know there's no such thing. Nobody's on the same wavelength. You only think they are. You date a woman, saying you're not married, I don't know, but you date a woman, you're going to put your best foot forward, are you? Are you not? You don't want her to think you're a slob, a bum, arrogant, so whatever. You just put your best foot forward for the first 3, 4, 5, 6 dates till you become a regular deal. Then it happens. The cracks start showing. Who you really are, what your limiting beliefs have created, which could be a short attention span, quick temper, depression, that'll hit you like that because something triggered it. And she's looking at you like, who's this guy? This is not who I met. We are missing that part. So as motivated as you are, you can go out as an owner with all the chest beating you want, but you have got to train your team the right way, not just in rah-rah words, to get to your goal. And you have to see that goal clearly, like you've already been there. It has to be in your heart and your mind, like you have already been there. And guys, we're going back. We're going home. That's it.
And we can use the dating example and apply it to business as well, right? So
absolutely.
I guess the sales team and then the initial contacts with the customer might be, the first few dates. And then you said after maybe 6 dates, I don't know, when like a service isn't quite as good or a customer complains or something, that's where, as you said, the cracks start to happen.
True.
But I did want to know what happened with how did you exit the big business?
sold it.
Okay, how was
I
that?
sold it. Selling it, it was like, it was hard not selling the company. It was hard leaving my team to move on to, I knew something was pulling me hard toward a different direction. I knew it. It was my time to go. I made sure that under contract, they kept the people that I'd hired. I said, these are the best of the best. I made sure that the leader that was coming in there wasn't an arrogant SO, and that they would take care of them. I didn't want to leave them in a lurch. And I called occasionally. I still do check on, it's like a mama bird. I just got to make sure they're taken care of. That part was difficult. Selling the business was nothing. It was a thing. Okay. It was a thing, a service I provided. But you know what I realized is when I was 6 months, I was walking in a circle. This is how I found myself in my head and literally, out here, it was just, what am I supposed to do? I am a doer. Okay. What is my purpose in life? Creating this and then selling it. And then what? Sitting in a rocking chair until I grow old and decrepit and die. No. When I retire, it's gonna be a granite stone on the ground that says my name, and she's now retired. That's what my plans were all along. So I started thinking, and out of nowhere, this thing pops in my lap about RTT, therapy called RTT. And in fact, I think one of the institutes there is in England, Marissa Peer. I checked into that, and it had an odd vibe to me. She had an odd vibe to me. It didn't match who I was, what it felt like. And I'm not saying anything bad about her. It's just, it wasn't the right fit. But it made me open to something like this is coming. I got to pay attention because something like this is where I'm supposed to be heading. Within a week, there it was. The first accredited hypnotherapy institute in the US. And I went back to school, and I was a sponge because I felt like I had gone through all of these trials and triumphs, and whatever they may have been were all stepping stones, learning paths to get me where I am today. Speaking in front of people is my passion because I want to feed hope in places where, especially in today's world, where things appear hopeless, no matter where you turn. We look at our government here and we're going, what the heck are you doing? We look at paychecks that so many taxes are taken out of. And I can talk openly about this. I'm gonna get shot when I leave this, but I wanted so much to give, even if it was a stadium of 2,000, and I've been there, and one person left there with hope in their heart. I've done my job. Now I found a way to affect more than one. And I feel more alive than I did when I was 20, because this is what I was born to do. Give people opportunities, give them hope. And, these people who studied hypnotherapy, most of them went through a lot of trial and tribulation. Most therapists do, most psychiatrists, psychologists, neurologists do. They went through traumatic events in their childhood. And they want to, now they've gone into professions to fix that problem. And that's what makes them so empathetic and good at what they do.
Leads us on nicely to one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, which was what your goals are, because you're talking about what you're doing now. So I'd like to know what you want to achieve.
I want to make this international. I want to be able to provide opportunities to hypnotherapists. One goal is just for the hypnotherapy side. Now, that also includes some people in our group are Reiki masters. For those who are into Reiki, I'm not, but that's my gig. MER and NLP. Now, NLP and MER are more toward, you can use it for test taking anxiety, sports teams in high schools, middle schools even, but, or professional football players, baseball players, soccer players. That's more what the technique is for, or for people with serious PTSD that are going to psychiatrists, but still struggle with working through an everyday life. They'll come to us and we work with them. We've worked with people who've smoked for 30 years and quit in one day, one session. So I want that referral thing. I want to be able to get these hypnotherapists, the ones with the same mindset, the same heart, that same Super Bowl mindset, on that referral system. So when I get a client call, they get transferred to some of the best. They're not shopping and finding somebody who's charging $25 cheaper so he can get your business because he did the weekend course, you see? And he can hang a certificate that was run off of somebody's computer that says he is a certified hypnotist. What you want is a certified clinical hypnotherapist. That's what you want. They're trained in some serious issues.
Have you got any inspirations in that particular, should we say, niche? Because when I saw that you did NLP and also hypnotherapy, it just made me think of Richard Bandler. And
yes, of course.
Is he an inspiration for you?
Well, not so much an inspiration as we were taught that he was kind of the father of some of these modalities. He took pieces of things, just like I was saying, if you want to, you have it in your gut that something else needs to happen. So you study this person, you like both of their concepts, but you have the sense in your gut that there's something more, there's something better, faster, more effective. And that's what he did. He pulled parts from different people and created a modality that people use today. So I take NLP, for example, and I don't follow it like, okay, page 1, page 2, because every person's different. I approach every team, sales team, marketing, HR department, whatever it may be, administration, let's call it administration. And they all get different techniques because they're different. They have a different mindset, okay? Not only personal limiting beliefs, but as a department, it's a different mindset. The administration department thinks, I've got nothing to do with sales. All I know is that Peter is a jerk and I don't want him coming into my space. That's all they know. Okay, they just take care of the records. I change that. I change it so that everybody is interacting and focused on one goal. If administration sees something going off course, that news travels to not to the boss who then starts, banging on everybody. She goes to sales and says, look, I need to show you this. And the sales manager will then go and take a look at what is causing a problem in sales. Is something is wrong with somebody's expense report, they're doing it wrong, and or we have found somebody's buying groceries and filling up a company car on the company credit card. So the systems we set up, unfortunately, catch things like that.
Well, I think you've given an awful lot of value today. So thank you very much for, also I've noticed you've been answering some of the questions through stories, which I find to be quite beneficial and work better than just like the blanket direct answer. So thank you for that. Would you like to close off with any closing thoughts you have, and then where's the best place for people to find you?
They can find me at, they can go to mindpaththerapies.com and find me on Facebook and Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, the regular social, haha. And I've got that all geared toward my website. If they're interested in any of the services that we have, and I don't care if they're like I said, we are an international company and we do everything over Zoom. So I can hypnotize you over Zoom. I guarantee it. So we have, we take clients from all over the world. All they have to do is click for a free 15-minute consultation. And I want to know your presenting issue. And we take it from there. We take good care of you from there.
Sounds very interesting.
And let's see, you want us to know how they can reach me. And what was the other question?
Closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. Don't ever give up. If you are an entrepreneur and you're starting out and you're frustrated, don't take it out on your wife and kids. They are a separate entity. They're part of the team. You need to call me because I can help you grow without the stress you're carrying. The thing before, even if you don't, because look, I got to just tell it to you straight. Some men just will not say, they won't say anything because they feel it's a weakness. I think it's a weakness if you don't. You're spinning your wheels. You're making your family suffer. Waiting and waiting and waiting for your dream to come true. But your limiting beliefs are keeping you from getting there. So don't give up. If you don't call me, call somebody. Get some direction. Get your head. Get those goalposts in sight, like you've already ran the ball through. That's it.
Deborah LeBlanc, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.